Okay, in this lecture we're going to talk about multiplying complex numbers. Now the first type of multiplication is one we discussed previously when we couldn't apply the radical rules. Alright, so we have to be very careful, right, when we are multiplying complex numbers like this. So let's have a look at an example. Okay, so let's multiply and divide. We're going to use these simple ones. Alright, okay, and we're going to simplify them. Alright, let's do part A. Let's suppose that we have the square root of negative 17 times the square root of negative 17. Now do not apply the radical signs to this, the radical rules to this, like we showed you. Doesn't work by multiplying the inside part first and then taking the square root. We have to change them first to imaginary parts, and of course this would be 17 square root of 17 by square root of 17 by I squared, which of course I squared is negative 1, so we end up with negative 17. Right, part B, let's suppose we have the square root of negative 5 by the square root of negative 30. Again, what we do in this case is we put this as I square root 5, and this would be I square root 30. Alright, so this would in fact be I squared by the square root of, we can apply the radical rules now, 150 by I squared, which of course is going to be, with no 25s will go into this, so this will be the square root of 25 times 6 by negative 1, because that's what I squared is. So this will be negative 5 square root 6. Alright, now let's do a simple division. Let's suppose that we have the square root of negative 42 over the square root of negative 3. So this would be, of course, I square root 42 over I square root 3. So this would be, the i's cancel of course, so we end up with the square root of 42 over 3. We can do that with our real numbers, so this will be the square root of 3, so this goes 114, and that's our answer. Alright, and part D, let's suppose we have the square root of negative 63 over the square root of 21. So notice here, this will be I square root of 63 over the square root of 21. We can now apply the radical rule, so this will be I square root of 63 on 21, which of course is I times the square root of 3. Okay, so we usually write that I square root 3, and that's our answer. Right, what if we have a complex number multiplied by a complex number? Okay, example. Alright, what we do is we just apply the FOIL. So multiply the following. Okay, part A, let's suppose that we have 3 plus 2i times by 2 minus 5i. Okay, so what we do is we apply the FOIL here because we have two terms, so we do the first ones here, so we end up with 3 2s are 6. We do the outside ones, which is going to be 3 by negative 5 is negative 15i. We do the inside ones, so we get 2i times 2, which is 4i. And finally we do the last ones, which is going to be 2 by negative 5 is negative 10. And be very careful here, it's I by I, which is I squared. So this now becomes 6 minus 15i plus 4i is negative 11i. And this is negative 10 by negative 1, because that's what I squared is. So this will now be negative by negative is positive, so it's 10 plus 6 is 16 minus 11i would be my result. Okay, what if we have something like 4 minus 5i squared. Now remember that this is 4 minus 5i by 4 minus 5i. And again, we could use the FOIL. So notice we get 4 by 4 is 16. We get 4 by negative 5 is negative 20i. We get negative 5 by 4 is negative 20i again. And then we get negative 5 by negative 5 is plus 25 I squared. I by I is I squared. So we end up with 16 minus 40i plus 25 by negative 1. So this is going to be 16 subtract 25, which is negative 9, subtract 40i will be my result. Okay. Now another interesting one is what happens if we do the reverse of this this subtraction here and we multiply it by itself. So here we have, notice we have a negative here and a positive here, same numbers. Alright, these are actually called conjugates, we're going to talk about later. Right, but notice again, if we FOIL this, we end up with 9 by 9 is 81. We have 9 by 8, which is 72i. We have negative 8 by 9, which is negative 72i. And finally we have negative 8 by 8 is 64i squared. And you'll notice here I get 81. Now notice negative 72i minus 72i is 0, so I end up with negative 64 by 1, negative 1. And so this becomes 81 plus 64, which of course is 145. Notice that the imaginary parts disappeared, so really this is 145 plus 0i. Notice that we just get a real number in that case when we're doing these two here, and these are what we call conjugates, and that's an important property that we're going to use later on. Alright, so that's how we multiply complex numbers.